It's that time.
Oh, it's time, baby.
March is just around the corner. This is the stuff that we want to do, the stuff you live for as a journalist, to cover these kind of games and have these kind of stories. And there'll be some great stories that make it to Mohegan. The question is, what will those stories be?
Hello, and welcome to Courtside with GameTimeCT, your place for high school boys and girls basketball from across Connecticut. Join us every week as we discuss hoops, break down the polls, shout out kids who had great games, and shine a light on high school hoops across the state. As always, please like and subscribe to GameTimeCT YouTube channel. See the polls and read the stories on GameTimeCT.com, and you have to check out our Instagram page, which is really cool. There's new reels and stories up there every day. There's a ton of stuff from the conference finals. We were at every conference final. There's videos, I think, of almost every single one. So go on our Instagram page and check that out. I am the girls basketball beat writer, Scott Ericon, and with me, as always, is the boys basketball beat writer, Joe Morelli. Joe, how are you?
It's that time.
Oh, it's time, baby.
March is just around the corner. This is the stuff that we want to do, the stuff you live for as a journalist, to cover these kind of games and have these kind of stories. And there'll be some great stories that make it to Mohegan. The question is, what will those stories be?
That's the question. State tournament time. The appetizers of the conference tournaments are finished. It's time for the main course, the run to the sun. Joe, there's nothing better, right?
At least not in March, there isn't.
No, not March.
No, it's going to be fun. Everything's going on. You got the colleges. That's Selection Sunday is the Sunday of the final. So it's a really great time of year. And like I said, there's a lot of good stories, a lot of good players. There are going to be stars and heroes that you probably weren't even expecting. And that's what, like I said, that's what's interesting about these 2 weeks. It's going to go by like that.
It's a really quick turnaround this year. The state tournament is starting Saturday for half the divisions and Monday for the rest. Stay tuned here because we are going to break down every single bracket of the 5 boys divisions, 5 girls divisions. We're going to pick Final Fours. We're going to pick champions. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of bulletin board material. And, of course, you can go on GameTimeCT.com. You can find all the CIAC brackets up there. You can find our scoreboard with all the sites, times of all the games. Those will be updated every night as scores come in. We'll be updating those. GameTimeCT.com. You can also find that stuff on Instagram, and then we'll link back to that. Before we get into the states, a couple things we want to talk about. There will be new polls that come out this week, but they are not ready as of the time that we are recording this. I will tease that there will probably be a new number 1 team on the girls' side because Northwest Catholic lost to Southington in the CCC semifinals. Real quick, we should talk about the conference finals for a second, Joe. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but we were both at conference finals for the boys and girls. Shout out to Staples for winning their first championship since 1963 on the boys' side, and to the Southington girls for winning their first CCC title ever. So I know there was also a major coaching milestone at the start of one of your tournaments you were at, right?
Yeah, I was. It feels like about 6 months ago with all that's going on.
It does feel like a long time ago.
It does, but congrats to Kenny Smith. He did win. It took 3 tries, but he won his 700th game against East Hartford. Not all against East Hartford, but 700th. He's the 3rd coach in CIAC history to reach the milestone. Vito Montelli from St. Joseph and Crosby Snickaljelli, who's still around, are ahead of him. They made it to the quarterfinals. Speaking of the CCC, Northwest Catholic may not have won the girls, but they did win the boys. It was Northwest Catholic's first CCC title, beating East Catholic. I will tell you, the girls' crowd, Southington and East Catholic, was bigger than the boys' crowd. So kudos to the Southington fans who showed up in droves for that game. As you mentioned, Scott, I mean, for Staples to do so without its best player, Sam Clacko, who fractured his wrist against St. Bernard. He tried to play, then he had an MRI, and he can't go. I mean, that's a really good job. I mean, they've owned Ridgefield. I mean, they've knocked them out of the last 3 tournaments now, and to do it without your best player says a lot. Chappaqua Valley and Ellington, they won their tournaments respectively. Chappaqua, the 1 seed in 5, undefeated. Ellington, the 1 seed in 4, Division 4, undefeated. And then you have Notre Dame West Haven, win their 4th straight SEC title. Avenge the only conference loss they've had since 2021 against Hill House. Butoy was tournament MVP, and you're going to be hearing a lot about him in the Green Knights over the next 2 weeks.
I feel like people are really paying attention to him. I think it was your tweet that he's sitting there signing autographs and taking pictures an hour after the game or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it was with family, the extended family. They were on the floor. Of course, I was the only journalist still in the building because I'm the slowest rider in human.
But you get to see that stuff, though. Yeah.
But it's really cool, and he enjoys the moment, and he's a motivated person because that loss motivated you. But now they're the hunted now, trying to defend Division 1, and we'll find out later if I picked them or not.
We will find out, Joe.
Yes.
Like I said, we don't want to spend too much time on the conference tournaments because we have so much to break down in the state tournaments. Before we get started, there's 5 boys tournaments, there's 5 girls tournaments. The girls expanded a couple of years ago to match with the boys. The boys do divisions, the girls do classes. Obviously, the boys do a Division 1, where in theory all the best teams are up there. The girls stay with classes. They do have a success in tournament qualifier, which moves up schools of choice like Mercy and Sacred Heart and Holy Cross. Personally, I think that 5 divisions in girls basketball is one too many because it dilutes the classes. Look, Class Double L this year is really, really good. Most of the really good teams are up there besides Northwest Catholic, and I think that tournament is awesome. But I think outside of Double L, you can make a really good case that these classes need to be condensed and just by 1. Right? Like they lowered the threshold for the girls. It's 30% win percentage to get into the tournament. And they still only have 23 teams in Class S because there's just not enough teams that qualify. I get why the CIAC does this. The CIAC wants more kids involved in postseason play. They want kids to experience this. It should be also said that they do make more money. You have more games, you make more money. There's more gates to the championships. There's more gates to the semifinals. All of that is true. I'm just of the opinion, especially on the girls' side, Joe, you can tell me what you think on the boys' side, but I think 5 divisions is one too many, and they need to consolidate and go back to 4 just to make these tournaments more competitive. Because I think if you had 4 tournaments, you would have 4 really good tournaments. And right now, there's some pockets in a few of these tournaments that are not super competitive. Joe, what do you think about the 5 divisions on the boys' side where it's done a little differently?
I've been consistent in saying this since the start. You had to make a change in the format that was. When Sacred Heart was running through Class M and Class S, when Trinity Catholic was in Class S and beat Westbrook, it felt wrong. And I'm a guy who doesn't think that the schools of choice should be in their own class. I think you should play against the best. But can you do it in 4 divisions? Yes. Are they tinkering with the system little by little and not making it what it should be? Yes. Would I like to see an NCAA tournament format where you select the field now? Yes. But that's never going to happen. So this format, 5 divisions, was done for 2 reasons. Number 1, to try to get as many of the schools of choice in the higher divisions. Granted, it is just 16 teams. Go look at the Division 1 people. If you don't want to play again, this is the best thing we're going to get. If you're not going to have the schools of choice in your own division, you've got most of them in Division 1. That's a fact. The other reason was to give the small public schools a chance to win a state championship, not have the issue with Trinity Catholic, and I think that has happened too. A lot of people may not care, but those kids do. So I don't have a problem with 5. If they went back to 4, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I'd have a problem with 3. Because, people say it doesn't matter. Well, I say go ask those kids and those coaches if it matters to them. I bet you it matters to old line. So.
Yeah, the kids who are in D5, I mean, that's important. It's small public schools generally that are in there right now. I mean, yes. And they've moved up most of the schools of choice. So I think that's a really good thing. I think the boys figuring that out. Obviously, there's some flaws in that D1 system where
Yes.
You don't have to earn wins, and we saw a problem with West Hill a few years ago, not really having no wins and getting in the tournament.
And now, and look at what they've done now. Now, what are they in Division 2, I think, or 3?
Right now, they've
So,
split down.
there's a lot of movement. That they use this mathematical formula, and people seem to like it. And again, you can move up. You can elect to play up to Division 1 like Staples did. And if it's over 16, a non-school of choice can move down. So they're doing everything but putting the schools of choice in their own division. So, and there's not enough schools of choice that are basketball schools or privates enough to have their own division. Honestly,
yeah, like you don't want their own division. I mean, Hill House wants to go play those teams. I mean, Wilbercross wants to play those teams.
But if you look at
Richfield want to play those teams.
But if you look at Division 2, it's mostly public and mostly non-schools of choice. It's it's a lot more teams, and it's very competitive. And I think if you ask those coaches, they're probably like, hey, okay, I'm okay with being Division 2. I don't have to go against the heavyweights that can draw outside of my own town.
Yeah, and the girls with the successive tournament, I think, have gotten better because the teams have to move up. So if you're in the semis, you're in the finals, so you move up every year. And Northwest Catholic has moved up. They've moved up and won titles of 2 different divisions. Now they're in L, not in double L, but that's where they were put. And everyone else is up in double L now. Holy Cross, Mercy, Sacred Heart, they're all in double L now. So we really do have a good tournament there. I'm looking forward to it.
Listen, 6 wins, it's like, or 5 wins or whatever. It's kind of like, I mean, I know, like I said, CIAC is about inclusion, and I kind of wonder sometimes having 30%. But if it was at 40% and there were only 21 teams getting in the tournament, and you have 11 teams with buys, it looks bad also. So,
well, that's the thing. Like I said, Class S only has 23 teams in it.
Right.
And
so 9 teams are getting buys.
Right. 9 teams are getting buys. That's a lot. And if you were at 40%, you'd have even less teams in there. So they had to go to 30 once they went to the 5 divisions for the girls. I just think they should go.
I don't have the perfect answer, Scott, and I don't think anybody.
None of us do. None of us do. And I get the reasons for it. I just think it would be more competitive, and the tournament and the brackets would look better if there was 4 divisions on the girls' side. But the girls should also have the same number of tournament as the boys, right? It shouldn't be 5 and 4. It should be 5 and 5 or 4 and 4, whatever they decide to do.
Right.
But
I mean, because you have 16 in Division 1, you got 30 in Division 3. I mean, it's a little bit, as far as that qualify, it's different. But Division 1, would I like to see another round? The problem is if you go to 32, then you're going to run into the same problems. You're going to have teams that don't want to play up there. So I think you're trying to please so many people. And that's part of the issue, too, instead of just making it and being done with it. But, again, everybody's got an issue. Everybody looks at it from their own myopic perspective, Scott. How does it affect me? And who gives a damn about anybody else? And that's part of the issue. And that's why nobody can come to an agreement on how scheduling goes and how tournaments go. I just think, listen, pick a system and let's be done with it instead of all this switching around nonsense.
Well, the other day I was talking about how the 30% thing was kind of good because Bridgeport Central girls made the tournament for the first time in 15 years. And they got in with a 30% win percentage, not 40. But great for them to be in the tournament. They have to play Mercy, but so awesome that they got to extend their season for 2
I would imagine they're pretty happy about it, like you said.
Are you kidding me? They get to play for 2 extra weeks. They get to play in the state tournament. That's what you want, right? That's the positive of all this. That's when you get teams in the tournament like that are just thrilled to be in there, and whether they play 1 game or 2 games or whatever they play, they're happy to be there. So,
and one more thing before we go on, I know we're going long on this, but for the girls' side, for how many years we've had 3 full weeks of state tournament, and now it's like 2 in a day.
Now it's like the boys. Now it's condensed.
I'm curious how it will be now more compact for them rather than having a semifinal on a Friday and then having 8 days later, semifinal on a Friday because they had them on Friday and Monday, and then having the final 8 days later.
I think it's going to be better because I thought that layoff was terrible because you spend your whole season playing 2 or 3 games a week, and then all of a sudden before your most important game of the year, they're like, hey, take a week off. And you get completely out of rhythm. Mohegan's hard enough to play in, learning with the depth perception and all that stuff.
Yes.
And you have a week off. You're so out of rhythm sometimes. So I always hated that about the girls' tournament. I'm really excited that the girls' tournament and boys' tournament are on the same schedule and that things are a little tighter schedule-wise. I just think it's better for the kids. right?
It was better for us because you had teams spread out, you could cover. But but it's for them and for the good of the game, I think it's a better move.
100%. All right, so we're going to go through. Let's give the people what they want now, Joe. Let's talk about these state tournaments.
I don't have my dartboard. I think I lost it because there were so many people taking shots. I don't know
we did okay with our conference picks. I missed a few, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to give people motivation. If they don't like the pick, I'm glad that they don't like it. I'm glad they have motivation. It carried E.O. Smith to a state championship a few years ago.
Does she still know who you are? I've seen that video.
Oh yeah, Bella Mallory and I follow each other on Instagram now. She's in college, and it was so much fun. They had fun with it. I have fun with it. Like, this is high school sports, right? Like, we're picking these winners. We're picking the teams we think are going to win. We don't hate the teams that we don't pick. I mean, I know that people think we do, but this is all supposed to be fun, Joe. We're supposed to be having fun here.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go through each class, each division. We'll pick a Final Four. We'll pick a championship game, and we'll pick a winner. And then we'll throw in a few dark horses who we think could make some noise in this tournament. So there's always some team that comes out of nowhere and surprises us. The Class S girls, we have Innovation as the top seed. They will get a bye. The CRAL champions could face Old Saybrook or Housatonic moving forward. We also have Morgan and Hale Ray in this bracket, both out of the Shoreline. We also have Coggin-Chog out of the Shoreline. Then we have Gilbert from the Berkshire coming up with Emily Errol, who is just doing crazy things, and Coventry, who is a really young team playing out of the NCCC. We also have a couple dark horses here. Number 10, North Branford, could make some noise, as could number 14, Canton. But let's look at the Final Four here. I like Innovation coming out of the top of this bracket as one of the Final Four teams. While I do think Hale Ray is good and could beat Morgan, I like Morgan to come out and play Innovation in that first semifinal. In the other semifinal, I like the young Coventry team. They could have problems with Wheeler or North Branford, but I like Coventry. I like the Patriots to come through. The last pod here is really tough. I'm having the hardest time picking between Gilbert and Coggin-Chog. Coggin-Chog with Sophie Farr, Shoreline champs, just 3 losses, and obviously they could be the champions in S. But I really believe in Emily Errol Magic. She's currently 5th on the all-time state scoring list. And selfishly, I want to see her keep playing and scoring and moving up that list. So I will take Gilbert, but I'm torn there. So that's the Final Four: Innovation, Morgan, Coventry, and Gilbert. And in the championship in Class S, Joe, I like Gilbert over Morgan. Joe, what do you like in Division 5 boys?
You just want to go back up to the Berkshire. You spend so much time up there.
I can't get away from the Berkshire League.
You want to go to the parade. That's why you're a pick. No. It'd be
if
great.
Gilbert wins, I'm going to the parade.
Well, you know what? The entire time Woodstead would come to Mohegan. I can promise you that.
Even
if the game's at Sunday at 10 a.m. But, speaking of the Berkshire League, I guess I kind of like it too. Chippewa Valley, they are one of 2 undefeated teams still remaining. They barely beat Nanawag for the Berkshire League championship. Nanawag was the defending champion. I mean, they got, if you remember back in January, Scott, 2 kids, Weed Warner and James Kirsten, both had 1,000 points in the same night. So I think those 2 guys are going to make a nice run. In their half of the bracket, you have Classical Magnet, number 4 seed, Thomaston, number 5 out of the Berkshire. And you have Shoreline Tournament finalist East Hampton at number 8. In the bottom half, you've got last year's finalists, the defending champion, number 3 Lime, and which also won the Shoreline this year, and also finalist number 7 Coventry. In those lower tournaments, Scott, you'll see a number of seeded upsets. I like Oxford and East Granbury, seeded 22nd and 23rd, to win a first-round game. My Final Four, a little bit of chalk here, but hey, number 1, Chippewa Valley, number 5, Thomaston, number 7, Coventry, and number 3, Lime. I like Chippewa to complete the undefeated season to beat Coventry. Class M girls.
So we got 2 Berkshire League teams.
Yes, we do. So I'll be joining you at the parade. I'll be joining you.
All right. Let's move to Class M, where the Wyndham Whippets are our top seed. You know how I feel about the Whippets, and they get the top seed in Class M. Also in there, they're the Division 2 ECC champions, Division 1 ECC champions, Bacon Academy, also in this Class M pool, as is Northwestern with Matty Topa. Seymour is here. There's some pretty good teams here. Like when you look at that top bracket, there's Wyndham, there's East Windsor Bloomfield, and there's Plainville, who could make it hard on the Whippets. We'll see if they actually do. Matty Topa's moving up the scoring record in that second pod in Class M. Matty Topa is moving up the scoring record just like Emily Arrow is. She's a little bit behind. The two teams there, Northwestern and Stonington, are the teams I think could come out of that pod there. Like I said, Bacon's the Division I ECC champs. They're pretty good. Emily Novak was the ECC MVP. Skyland Sco Rain is really solid. I don't see a lot of competition in this pod for Bacon if you kind of look at it closely. The next pod, Caner Tech's been really solid. Montville has been giving teams some trouble. But I think that the biggest test here is going to be Seymour or Woodland, the two NVL teams. These teams played two really close games this year. Woodland is a number 19 seed, but I could see them as one of the dark horses here. I could also see East Windsor Bloomfield with Bailey Winner being a dark horse in Class M. Having said all that, here's my final four for Class M. I like Wyndham. I'm also going to take Northwestern to play Wyndham in that semifinal game. At the bottom of the bracket, I'm going to go with Bacon Academy. And I think they're going to end up playing Seymour in that other semifinal. My championship game in Mohegan Sun is an all ECC affair, and I like Wyndham to defeat Bacon in the Class M Girls Championship. Joe, Division 4 boys, what do you got?
Well, we have the other undefeated team still remaining in Connecticut, Ellington. And in fact, they were down to SMSA in Wednesday's NCCC final, but they had an 18-4 run in that third quarter, and they pulled ahead to stay, and they won the NCCC to remain undefeated. They'll be the top seed in this division. You got Bridgeport Central and Ledyard as a 16-17 game in the second round, so that should be interesting. I like Ellington to move on there. Also in their half of the bracket is Griswold, the number 4 seed. They won the ECC Division II title over Montville on Wednesday, as well as number 5 Rockville. In the bottom half of the bracket, you have Aerospace, who was one of those undefeated teams for a while before they ran into innovation. Aerospace is the number 2 seed. CTC champion Wyndham Tech is number 3. Cromwell, which won this division a couple years ago, is number 7. And then you have New Fairfield out of the SWC is the number 6 seed. I'm going to skip right to the final four because you're going to see a little bit of difference. Number 1, Ellington. Number 4, Griswold. Number 2, Aerospace. And number 6, New Fairfield. I like New Fairfield. The Rebels playing a tough schedule. I think can get far. And in fact, I have them going to Mohegan, but I have them losing to Ellington, the top seed. What I will say, Scott, as we saw with the league tournaments, it's very hard when you're undefeated, no matter who you are, to keep it going. It's going to be really difficult. I think they both can do it, but I think there's going to be a couple close games. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see Chappaq or Ellington in an overtime game in this tournament.
Yeah, everybody's coming for Ellington. Everyone sees them at the top of the bracket. Like, there's no hiding anymore.
Yeah.
Class Double M girls. The top seed here is East Catholic. They lost in the CCC final to Southington. Still a really good team down in Class Double M. In their top pod up there, I think Barlow's the only team that could really get through past East Catholic in Class Double M in the top part of that pod there. And when you're moving down a little bit, you have Ellington in there. They won 9 of 10 to end the regular season. They got blown out in the NCCC semis by Suffield. But I think they can rally and play well in states here. Berlin is in there, very, very tough. And the team you really need to watch out for here is Law. They're a number 13 seed. But as you always know, when a team comes out of the SEC or the CCC and they're a low seed in one of these middle tier classes, they can make some noise. So watch out for Law. The really tough pod in Double M is like that middle bottom pod. You have Suffield, who's the CCC, the NCCC runner-up. Hazel Qua is a terrific player. This pod is really, really hard because North Haven's in there, who's another one of those SEC teams who plays a really hard schedule and now is going to be playing teams from smaller conferences. You also get Rocky Hill in there, who played very, very well in the CCC this year and kind of flew under the radar. So it's not an easy path for any of those teams to get through. One of the tougher pods, actually, is that little pod right there. And then at the bottom of it, Sheehan's down there in that final pod. Foreign's in there with them. And then Woodstock and Ledyard are both very tough, the ECC. There are some dark horses here, like I mentioned. Law, number 13 seed, Berlin, Ellington, Foreign. Those are all teams that could make noise in this tournament and be definite dark horses. The Final Four, I like East Catholic coming out of the top. I don't think Barlow is good enough to beat them. The second team I like, like I said, Law and Berlin are tough, but I like Ellington. I like Ellington to slip through there. The third team I like is Suffield. I do like Suffield and Triple C to be the third team in Class MM. And then I like Sheehan. I really, really like Sheehan in this tournament. Like I said, Foreign, Woodstock, and Ledyard are not easy, but I like Sheehan to get through. And in the championship game, I like Sheehan for East Catholic. Joe, Division III boys. Who's in the Division III boys?
You got the defending champion, Bunnell. Last year as the 5 seed, they won it. This year, they're the top seed. And you saw Monday night against Notre Dame Prep. I mean, that was only one of 4 losses for the Bulldogs. 2 of them into Notre Dame Prep, who's in Division I. They also lost to Massac and the Fairfield Ward, 2 teams that could make a run in this tournament. Think about Bunnell as they play good defense. They're solid, and it kind of served notice on anybody who's in this division. They beat Colby 82-50 in its regular season finale. Massac is in that top half of the bracket as the number 8 seed. So is Foreign, which reached its first SEC tournament semifinal in school history. They're the 4 seed. Weston is at number 5. In the bottom half of the bracket, you've got Fairfield Ludlow. Ludlow made it to the semifinals last year in Division III, lost a heartbreaker by 1 to Lewis Mills. They're the 2 seed, the Falcons are. Killingly's number 3. New Canaan played a good schedule in the FCIAC. They're number 6. And you got Fitch, who knocked heads with New London and St. Bernard in the ECC Division I. They're number 7. As far as seeded upsets, only a couple. I like number 18, St. Paul, to beat number 15, Wyndham in the first round. And I like number 10, Newington, to beat number 7, Fitch, in the second round as well. As far as the Final Four goes, I like top seed Bunnell. I think they're going to be back. I think Foreign's going to find a way to get through. Having home games in this tournament is vital, and they will as long as they're alive. Same with Ludlow at number 2 seed, and I do like number 6 New Canaan to get through. In the championship, I think Bunnell's going to repeat. I think it's going to be Ludlow in the final.
Bunnell,
yeah.
Yeah, back to back.
Yep.
I saw Bunnell against Notre Dame. They're very good. I mean, they're a very good team, the Bunnell boys. All right, moving to the Class L girls. Northwest Catholic has been the number 1 team in the GameTimeCT poll for a while. They lost in the CCC semis. They will probably not be the number 1 team when the state tournament starts. Up in the pod with them is number 9, Bristol Eastern, who has played really, really well, won 7 of 8 down the stretch here. Also, number 8, Massac is up there with Northwest Catholic and could challenge. Both those teams could challenge the Lions to get through that quarterfinal pod. The next little pod moving down, Notre Dame, the SWC runner-up, is the top part of that pod there. And we have Newtown in there. We have New Canaan in there. New Canaan made a run last year. Newtown's always a very tough team defensively. And we also have Amity in there. Nina Nardecchia has had an incredible season. She scored 1,000 points. And the Spartans have been really, really strong out of the SEC, just below that top tier of teams in that league. Moving down to the top of the bottom part of the draw there, the SWC champs Bethel are sitting there. The NBL runner-up St. Paul is sitting there, and Pomperaug, who is always, always tough, is always there. Bethel beat Pomperaug by 10 during the regular season. We'll see if they end up meeting up again. The bottom part of the bracket in L, Bristol Central is down there with Kamaria Bones. They've kind of been on the periphery of the top 10 all season. Also, Windsor's another team that's kind of been on the periphery of the top 10, sort of close. It's also the school that Bowens transferred from. Those 2 teams could meet in the quarterfinals. Windsor beat Central in overtime during the regular season. Dark horses here, I kind of mentioned them before. Bristol Eastern, tough team. Tony Floyd, great coach. Pomperaug, again, Joe Fortier, great coach. St. Paul, again, state champions last year and almost beat Holy Cross in the NBL championship game. For the Final Four in Class L, I do like Northwest Catholic. look, they lost in the CCC semis, but guess what? They didn't win the CCC the other 2 times they won state championships, so I don't think that matters. I think they make a run to the semifinals here. I like Amity in that next pod. Like I said, Newtown and Notre Dame are tough, but I really like Amity. I like Nina Nardecchia. In that middle part, Pomprog and St. Paul, I really thought about picking one of them, but I'm going to go with the SWC champs, Aiden Gill and Bethel. And in the bottom part of that draw, I'm going to take Bristol Central to make the Final Four. Like I said, I think it comes down to them in Windsor. I'm going to take Bristol Central. In the championship game, I like Northwest Catholic to win their 3rd state championship in their 3rd different class for the 3rd year in a row and defeat Bristol Central in the championship game. Joe, let's move to Division II boys. Division II boys is a really good division.
It really is. It's deep. It's solid. You got a lot of schools that can contend here. And it starts with Manchester, Scott. I mean, they right before Christmas, Manchester 71, Northwest Catholic 45, and then in the next 4 games, they score over 100 or more 3 times, and that kind of really vaulted them into the top 10 where they've been the rest of the way. Their only regular season loss was the East Catholic, which they avenged later that month. They shoot threes like they're going out of style. They have a fast break offense. It's like 100 miles an hour, and they beat Windsor twice. But Manchester did lose to Windsor in the CCC quarterfinals. They're the top seed here for the 2nd straight year. I am curious how they'll react to that loss. My feeling is they'll be fine. And last year, they lost to Stanford in the quarterfinals at home. So they'll have another opportunity to have home games in this tournament, which I said before is vital to having a chance to move on. You got Hillhouse in Division II at number 4 seed. This is the first time the Academics are not playing in the highest division since the 2002-2003 season. They've elected to play up many years. I mean, again, like we said, this is a solid tournament. I think they're fine. It's not going to be easy to get through. They're the only team to beat Notre Dame and West Haven. They've also beaten Holy Cross. They've beaten West Haven 3 times, and they beat New London. And all were ranked at one point or another. They also played Mount Vernon. And then I think if they get that far, it'd be a great semifinal against Manchester. Bloomfield's number 5. The Warhawks won Division 4 in 2022. They lost the Division 3 final to WCA in 2023. As a 27th seed last year, didn't make the CCC tournament, Scott. They advanced to the Division 2 quarterfinals as a 27th seed, and they have a potential quarterfinal at Hillhouse. And then you have Fairfield Ward. They've been up and down this year. They're the number 13 seed, but they're trying to reach their 3rd straight Division 2 semifinal. And I think it's a possibility. Of course, you'd have to beat Bloomfield and Hillhouse to get there. On the bottom half of the bracket, you've got Innovation. They're the number 2 seed. They won Division 4 last year. They've been bumped up 2 divisions. They haven't lost since December. That was to Cheney Tech in overtime, and it's a possibility they could see them in this tournament. And they repeated as the Corral champion. London's number 3. They lost to St. Bernard Wednesday night in the ECC Division 1 final, another great game. They're the only team in the ECC to beat St. Bernard, and that loss Wednesday night was their first since December 27th. All right? I think it's only going to be a speed bump for the Whalers. I think they'll be rebounding in this tournament, especially the motivation after losing in the first round last year to Bloomfield. They also, in that half of the bracket, it's tough. Number 6, Glastonbury. Number 7, Sellington. And number 11, West Haven. Remember last year, West Haven was the 12th seed, pulled 3 seeded upsets en route to the final, went to overtime with Windsor before losing. I think they can make another run here. In fact, I think they will make to the quarterfinals. I think they'll beat Glastonbury in the 2nd round. As far as Final Four goes, I like number 1, Manchester, number 4, Hillhouse, number 7, Sellington, and number 3, New London. And for my championship, I debated over this back and forth. I'm going with New London over Manchester.
Wow.
Check back with me tomorrow, though. I may change. No. It's.
That's a really tough.
It's going to be.
Hillhouse could win that too.
Yeah, they could win it. They could definitely win it. I don't know if Bloomfield can win it. But I will tell you, I think New London can get through that draw. I think they've been playing so well since they lost 3 in a row in December. There's no shame in losing to St. Bernard, and again, they beat them at home. And again, you get home games. I mean, they're going to get 3 home games in this tournament. And again, Manchester. It's going to be fun watching New London and Manchester play. I mean, somebody could score 90 in that game for sure. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Let's move on to the Double L girls. Double L girls are as close as the girls get to having a Division I like the boys have. Outside of Northwest Catholic, I think all the best teams are up here. The success and tournament modifier has worked. Mercy's here, Sacred Heart's here, Holy Cross is here. And they're all up here because of the success of tournament. None of those teams are the size of the Double L schools, but they joined the best big schools from the CCC, the FCIAC, and the SEC. I'm really excited for this tournament. I think for the first time in a few years, too, it's really, really wide open where I don't have a clear picture of who's going to win. You know, I think the last 2 years we thought Hamden, East Hartford before that, like there was always a superstar player or two or a really strong team, and we were like, oh, we're pretty sure they're going to be in the final. This thing is as wide open as I've seen Double L. Let's jump into the bracket. The top of the bracket, Holy Cross is the top seed. They won Class M in 2022. They were a semifinalist in Class L in 2023 and the runner-up in Class L last year. They've been one of the top 3 teams all season in the GameTimeCT poll. Shania Howard, Isabella Lombardo, Quinn Berry make them really tough. But up in that top bracket with them are Mercy at number 8 and Glastonbury at number 9, both of whom are capable of beating Holy Cross and need to be watched there. Really, really solid teams right there. The second part of that bracket as you move down, the SEC championship was Sacred Heart and Hamden. Last year's Double L final was Sacred Heart and Hamden. If Sacred Heart has a bye, if Hamden wins, they play each other again in the second round. Their 4th meeting this year. They had 4 meetings last year. That would be pretty cool, second round matchup. You're also looking in that same little bracket there with Conard. Conard is in there with Emily Knowles, as is Stanford and Staples from the FCIAC. Stanford obviously has some injuries, but really, really tough pod there for Sacred Heart. Shockingly tough pod for Sacred Heart to have to come out of. Having said that, in the Soccer World Cup every year, there's a group known as the Group of Death, meaning the toughest group to escape from. And it certainly could have been that Sacred Heart Hamden pod there, but I think it's this pod. Southington, Trumbull, New Britain, Ridgefield, and NFA. Southington is the CCC champs. Ridgefield won the FCIAC, and NFA was the ECC runner-up. Trumbull versus New Britain is one of the wildest first-round games and a huge contrast in styles. New Britain can light it up. They've scored 60 points 14 times, 60 points or more, 14 times this season, while Trumbull has only allowed one opponent to reach 60 points, and that was Danbury back in December. Trumbull is one of the best defensive teams in the state every year. Ridgefield and NFA, which are also in this pod, are 2 of the best coach teams year in and year out, which is why you always see them at the top of their leagues and always competitive in these. This is a really, really, really tough group, and I think the toughest group of any tournament. Now, let's move to the bottom of this bracket here. Another potential 4th meeting. Ward has a bye. If Ludlow beats West Haven, Ludlow and Ward will play for a 4th time this year. Ward made a run to the FCIAC finals without Ryan Goulbin. She's out for the season with a knee injury. Ludlow is in this bracket, like I said. Greenwich is here. And there's some really, really tough teams. Now, if we're looking at dark horses across this, we mentioned Mercy. They have Maddie Benigni, really, really good player. When you have a great player, they can carry you. Who else has a great player? Number 9, Glastonbury, Maddie Handerhan. Really, both girls are capable of scoring 30 points a night, and they can carry teams. They both could give Holy Cross a lot of trouble if they reach the quarterfinals. Hamden has also been playing really, really well. They reached the SEC final. They lost to Sacred Heart. They'd have to get through them. If they can get through Sacred Heart somehow, watch out for the Dragons. So let's pick a Final Four here. Let's get around to it. Let's pick a Final Four in Class Double L. Up top, like I said, Mercy and Glastonbury are tough, but I like Holy Cross to get through. I also like Sacred Heart to get through in the top of that bracket up there. Moving down, that group is really hard. I think that there's a potential for Southington to lose, but Southington is just a really special team right now. Lily Cooper and company are rolling. They won their first CCC title, and I think they make the Final Four. Here, in the bottom half of that draw, it's tough. And I would have said Ward, and Greenwich is obviously really good, but I like Ludlow as the number 11 seed with Kate Simidor, Hayden McBean to reach the semifinals. So for the championship game, I've gone back and forth with this a lot, switching them. I have the two teams and who's going to win. I'm going to say it on the record right now, and then I can't change it. I'm going to go Southington defeats Sacred Heart in the Class XL Girls Championship. Joe, let's move over to the big one, the Division I Boys 16-team mega tournament.
Okay, take a quick timeout though first, Scott. I am curious, having walked in on that in the middle of that game on Monday night, how much change did you make with Southington beating Northwest Catholic and then beating East Catholic? Did they kind of move up in your eyes making that kind of run?
Absolutely. Like, I always thought Southington was a solid team. They had one loss all season. Right. That doesn't happen by accident. But then when you go into the tournament, like you said, that there's those teams in front of you. So we've been ranking Northwest Catholic ahead of them all season because we think they're better. But right. Southington won the game, and then they demolished East Catholic in the championship. So for me, yeah, Southington moved up. And I'll even tell you that I voted Southington number one in the poll. I know people are going to vote for Sacred Heart, and I know people are going to vote for Holy Cross in the poll. But I thought, since they beat the number one team and they beat another top 10 team to win their conference, I put Southington up there as the top team in the state. Again, the only rankings that matter come out in 2.5 weeks from now. But I have Southington as the top team in the state right now heading into the tournament.
Yeah, very interesting, Scott. As far as Division I goes here in boys, I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times. 16-team field. If you win 4 games here, you've earned the championship. Northwest Catholic is the top seed here, and they have flown under the radar. Like, after they lost to Manchester back in December, yeah, they've been ranked, and they've done well, and they beat East Catholic, and they beat them East Catholic again. But when you win the CCC, which is the best league in the state, as we've said over and over, it does serve a little bit more notice, and they're the top seed here. And they're looking for their first state title since 2003, which was in Class L, and it was a buzzer beater over Wilbur Cross. Speaking of East Catholic, I find a very intriguing first-round matchup at Ridgefield. Actually, it's a second-round matchup, but to me, it's the first round because they all get a bye anyway.
No first round.
Yeah, exactly. They call it second round. To me, it's first round, and then it's quarterfinals. These teams met in the Division I semifinals in 2023. East Catholic won that and eventually won the championship, beating Northwest Catholic. Staples, we talked about at the top of the show, as you were there for that great game at Fairfield U. Kudos to the Wreckers. I got to be honest. I didn't think they were going to win the FCIAC even before. I just thought Ridgefield was finally going to get its comeuppance, but you know what? Staples has had Ridgefield's number, knocked them out of the last 3 tournaments. They win it without Sam Clacko, who's out for the season with a wrist. And this team is pretty confident in, as number 4 seed, they can do some damage. But regardless, to win the FCIAC without your best player, it's a tribute to that group and to head coach Dave Goldshore. And the other thing, and we've said this all year long, Staples is the only team to elect to play in Division I. Because they thought they were going to be in Division I. They were disappointed not to be in Division I. So when Goldshore asked the kids, do you want to play in it? Captains, they said yes. Here they are. And they got a chance to play number 5, St. Bernard, in the quarterfinals. This game would be at Westport. The regular season game won by St. Bernard was in Uncasville. St. Bernard, Tyler Mangold, buzzer beater down at Sacred Heart University, Scott. That was a great game. They're in different halves of the bracket. The only way they can meet is in the final. Notre Dame Prep is the number 3 seed on the other half of the bracket. The defending champion, Notre Dame West Haven, is the number 2 seed. They won their first state title last year, going 28-0, winning Division I. Abdu Tori's back. Landon Krieger's back. Green Knights look like they can make another run to Mohegan. And you got to think that Tori's going to do whatever he can not to let them lose. Notre Dame Prep's only loss is in Connecticut, was to St. Bernard. They lost their first 2 games of the year in a tournament in Florida. Notre Dame West Haven's only other loss, other than Hill House, was in Florida as well. Holy Cross is the number 6 seed. They're led by Elijah Parker, who, right as this taping, is 15th all-time in CIAC scoring. He crossed 2,000 points this year. They're a dangerous team. You got Windsor, last year's Division II champion. They're in Division I. They're the number 10 seed. a CCC tournament semifinalist, and a very intriguing first round matchup at WCA. Although I'm not sure where that game will be because their facility is too small. It'll be somewhere else, but it'll still be in Waterbury. It's a loaded bracket, Scott. It's incredible theater. It will be throughout the next 2 weeks. In fact, I see a lot of things holding the form. The only seeded upset I see in that first round, I think Wilbur Cross, number 11, will beat Holy Cross. My final four: top seed Northwest Catholic, number 5 St. Bernard, number 2 Notre Dame West Haven, and number 3 Notre Dame Prep. Notre Dame West Haven and Notre Dame Prep will be meeting for the 4th straight year. Notre Dame West Haven has won all those, and they'll beat Notre Dame Prep again. I have them facing St. Bernard, a rematch from last year, and I have Notre Dame West Haven repeating. Of course, that'll probably all change and all be wrong, and everybody will have a good time with it. But you know
it's
what?
Really a great tournament, though, Joe.
It is.
I think it's similar to the girls' double L, where it really seems wide open this year, where you don't have Notre Dame is the number 1 team, but they're beatable, right?
They're the number 1 team. As of going into the league tournaments, they're the number 1 team in the state, and I imagine they'll stay number 1. Notre Dame Prep and the St. Bernard, Northwest Catholic. I didn't mention Staples beating St. Bernard. I mean, they're going to be at home, and that crowd's going to be nuts. So they could beat St. Bernard. They were in the game at Uncasville. So it's. I think St. Bernard, they're tournament tested. I like the 2 brothers and Armory Gray. I just think they're mentally tough. I think they know how to win. I think all these teams know how to win at this time of year. There's very little separating these teams. I just think Notre Dame West Haven is a little bit better, and I think they have the best player going to the tournament. But injuries, things happen, and it could change and just like that. So, but I'm staying with the Green Knights.
I love it, Joe. All right, that will do it for our tournament. That'll do it for our tournament preview. We will be back with our podcast right before the state championship, so in between the semis and the finals, and we will preview all 10 state championship games. As always, all of the brackets, all of the scoreboards are on GameTimeCT.com. We will be updating them every night as scores come in. We will have times for every game. You want to go watch a game, go on GameTimeCT.com and find out when and where the games will be held. As always, please like and subscribe to GameTimeCT YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and go to GameTimeCT.com, not just for basketball, but for everything. Ice hockey, swimming, everything that's held during the winter. Wrestling, everything we got there. Listen, for Joe, for producer Danny behind the scenes, I'm Scott, and we will see you next time. Courtside with GameTimeCT.